I'm Maya Chin, and I've spent the last 8 Thanksgivings listening to my family explain why I'm the disappointment. This year they hired professional help to prove it. What they got instead was a front-row seat to their own destruction. If you've ever been the family scapegoat, hit that like button and subscribe right now. You're not going to want to miss what happened next. My older brother Derek was the golden child from birth. Captain of the football team, business degree from Stanford, married to Jennifer, a woman whose entire personality revolved around Instagram aesthetics and country club memberships. They had 2 perfect children whose photos dominated every family gathering. I was the weird one. The quiet kid who preferred coding to cheerleading, who skipped family vacations to attend programming camps, who chose a state school over an Ivy because I'd already started my first company during high school. My parents never understood why I turned down their offer to pay for a prestigious university. They saw it as throwing away opportunity. I saw it as maintaining independence they couldn't later use as leverage. By 23, I'd sold that first startup for $8 million. I told no one. I enrolled in an MBA program online, lived in a modest apartment, and started building something bigger. My family assumed I was struggling, working some entry-level tech job, barely making rent. I never corrected them. Maya's going through her phase, Mom would say at family dinners, her voice dripping with concern that felt more like judgment. She'll figure out real life eventually. Derek loved it. Every family gathering became his stage. I just closed a $2 million deal, he'd announce, waiting for applause. Jennifer and I are looking at houses in Montecito. You know where Oprah lives. That's wonderful, honey, Mom would gush. Then she'd turn to me. And Maya, how's that little tech thing going? Fine, I'd say. Always just fine. What they didn't know, I was building Data Secure Solutions, an AI-powered cybersecurity platform. We'd landed contracts with 3 Fortune 500 companies. Our valuation had hit $140 million. Forbes had interviewed me for their 30 under 30 list, but I'd requested they delay publication. I wasn't ready for my family to know. Why? Because I needed to see who they really were when they thought I had nothing. My grandmother Rose had died 2 years earlier. Before she passed, she'd pulled me aside at the hospital. I'm leaving you something, Maya. Don't tell them. They'll try to take it. She'd left me $2.3 million and a letter explaining why. You're the only one who never asked me for money. The only one who visited because you wanted to, not because you needed something. The rest of them are vultures. She wasn't wrong. Within a week of her death, Derek was calling lawyers about contesting the will. When he discovered the bulk had gone to me, he went nuclear. She must have manipulated Grandma, he shouted at the family meeting. Maya's been playing poor to gain sympathy. Mom nodded eagerly. We should investigate this. It's not normal for someone to hide money. I'd smiled. Grandma left me what she wanted to leave me. The will is ironclad. That's when I became the family villain. Not the successful sibling. Not the granddaughter who'd honored her grandmother's wishes. The fraud. The manipulator. The ungrateful child who'd stolen their inheritance. While Derek posted LinkedIn updates about his entrepreneurial journey, he was a mid-level sales manager at a software company someone else built. I was actually building something. Data Secure Solutions started in my spare bedroom with my best friend and CTO Marcus Johnson. We'd met at a cybersecurity conference where we were both speaking. He was brilliant, funny, and had no interest in my family drama. They think you're broke? He'd laughed when I told him. Maya, our Series B funding was $40 million. You own 60% of a company valued at $140 million. You're personally worth over $80 million. They don't need to know that. Why not just tell them? Because then I'd never know if they loved me or my bank account. Marcus understood. His own family had appeared out of nowhere when he'd sold his first startup. Suddenly everyone was his best friend. Everyone had a business idea. Everyone needed just a small loan. My business partner Linda Zhao was equally pragmatic. Your family sounds exhausting, she'd said when I explained why I kept my work life completely separate. But it's smart. People treat you differently when they know you have money. By my 28th birthday, Data Secure had expanded to 150 employees. We'd opened offices in 3 cities. Our client list included banks, hospitals, and government contractors. I'd personally consulted for companies whose names I couldn't disclose due to NDAs. I'd been invited to speak at international conferences, always declining media coverage. I lived in a nice but not ostentatious condo. I drove a 3-year-old Honda Civic. I wore jeans and hoodies to family gatherings. I never talked about work beyond vague references to tech stuff. Meanwhile, Derek's performance continued. New car every 2 years, always leased. Designer clothes for Jennifer. Private school for the kids. A house they could barely afford with a mortgage that made my accountant wince when I mentioned it. How do they manage it? Marcus asked once. I think they're drowning in debt, I said. But they look successful and that's what matters to them. What I didn't know, they weren't just drowning. They were stealing. The year I turned 30, everything accelerated. In March, Forbes published the 30 Under 30 article despite my previous request to hold it. They'd waited 2 years. Apparently that was their limit. The article mentioned DataSecure's valuation but didn't include my photo at my request. Just my name. My family never read Forbes. In July, DataSecure received a $20 million contract from the Department of Defense. We were going to secure communications infrastructure for 3 military bases. It was classified work, career-defining, the kind of achievement that would cement our position as an industry leader. I told my family I'd gotten a promotion at work. That's nice, dear, Mom had said, barely looking up from her phone where she was liking photos of Derek's vacation in Tuscany. In September, my Uncle John called. He was my father's brother, always friendly, always interested in my life in a way my parents weren't. Maya, honey, I need to ask you something sensitive. Sure, Uncle John. Have you thought about estate planning? You're 30 now. You should have a will, power of attorney, that sort of thing. Seemed caring. Thoughtful even. I should have known better. I have a lawyer handling that, I said. But thank you. Who's your lawyer? I just want to make sure you're working with someone reputable. Warning bells. Quiet but present. Uncle John, why do you need to know who my lawyer is? I'm just looking out for you. Your family. I declined to share the information. He'd seemed annoyed. Within a week, 3 more relatives had called with similar questions. And Sarah wanted to know where I banked. Cousin Michelle asked about my investments. Mom wanted to know if I'd considered life insurance and could she be listed as a beneficiary? The circling had begun. Then came October and the family meeting that changed everything. Mom called, her voice crisp and businesslike. Family dinner at our house. Saturday at 6. Be there. It's mandatory. I almost laughed. I was the CEO of a company worth $140 million, and my mother was issuing mandatory dinner summons. But I went. Because I was curious. Because some part of me still hoped they might surprise me. I walked into my parents' house. A massive McMansion Derek had convinced them to buy 3 years ago, to find the entire family assembled. Mom, Dad, Derek, Jennifer, Uncle John, Aunt Sarah, Cousin Michelle and her husband Brad. Everyone looking at me with expressions ranging from pity to barely concealed hostility. Sit down, Maya, Dad said. He'd never been the warm parent, but his coldness that night was glacial. I sat. Derek leaned forward, his expression what he probably thought was concerned but looked more smug. Maya, we need to talk about Grandma Rose's money. That was settled 2 years ago. We don't think it was settled fairly, Jennifer interjected. She had a wine glass in hand already half empty. We think you manipulated an elderly woman. The will was clear. Multiple lawyers reviewed it. We've been watching you, Mom said. Living in that shabby apartment, driving that old car. Where's the money, Maya? What did you do with it? I felt the trap closing. I invested it. Invested it where? Uncle John demanded. We've been asking around. Nobody knows anything about your finances. You're hiding something. My finances are my business. Not when they involve family money. Aunt Sarah's voice had reached a shrill pitch. Rose's money should have been split equally. You've been lying about being poor to avoid sharing. Derek pulled out his phone. We hired someone. A professional investigator. He's been looking into your finances, your background, everything. We paid good money to find out the truth. My heart rate didn't change. My expression didn't flicker. Because I knew something they didn't. I'd built my company on securing data. I knew exactly how to protect my own. Any investigator worth his fee would find exactly what I allowed him to find. And quite possibly more than my family wanted anyone to find. You hired an investigator, I repeated. To investigate me. To prove you're lying. Mom's hands trembled with righteous anger. You've been playing us for fools. Living like a pauper while hiding millions. And when he proves it, Derek said, you're going to split that money with the family. The way it should have been done originally. I nodded slowly. And if the investigator doesn't find what you think he'll find? He will, Jennifer said confidently. We pay top money. He's the best. When do I meet this investigator? Thanksgiving, Dad announced. We're having him present his findings at Thanksgiving dinner. In front of everyone. Public humiliation. They wanted witnesses to my downfall. They wanted everyone to see me exposed, cornered, forced to hand over what they believed I'd stolen. Okay, I said simply. They looked confused by my calm. Okay. Derek repeated. That's all you have to say? What would you like me to say? If you've hired an investigator, his findings will speak for themselves. I stood up. Is there anything else? Mom's eyes narrowed. We know you're hiding something, Maya. And when we prove it, you're going to wish you'd been honest with us from the start. I walked out without another word. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from tonight. I drove home and called an emergency meeting with Marcus and Linda. They did what? Marcus stared at me, coffee cup halfway to his mouth. Hired a private investigator to prove I'm hiding Grandma's money. Linda started laughing. They have no idea what they've just done, do they? None. Maya, Marcus said carefully, any PI worth his fee is going to find data secure. And when he does proper due diligence, he's going to find a lot more than my company, I finished. We'd built data secure with one core principle. Know your vulnerabilities before your enemies do. As part of our security protocols, we ran background checks on everyone who had access to sensitive information. That included running financial security checks to ensure no one was susceptible to bribery or blackmail. A year ago, after Derek's increasingly aggressive questions about loans and my parents' hints about family helping family financially, I'd authorized a quiet background check on my immediate family. Not to hurt them. To protect myself. What we found was worse than I'd imagined. Pull up the files, I told Linda. She opened her laptop. Derek Chin. Embezzlement from his employer totaling $127,000 over 18 months. Fake expense reports, ghost contractors, kickback schemes with vendors. Uncle John Chin and Sarah Chin, Marcus continued. Wire fraud, identity theft. They opened credit cards in your grandmother's name in the 6 months before she died. Total charges, $89,000. Then they forged her signature to have the bills sent to a P.O. box. Your parents, Linda said quietly. Credit card fraud, forgery. They've been using Derek's access to his company's vendor accounts to create fake invoices. They're routing money through accounts they control. The total is $264,000. $480,000 in combined fraud and theft. My family wasn't just entitled. They were criminals. If a good PI digs even slightly, Marcus said, he'll find all of this. Financial irregularities, suspicious transactions, the works. Especially if he's doing a comprehensive background check thinking he'll find hidden assets. They've handed us everything, Linda said. They're so focused on proving you're hiding money, they never considered what else might be found. I called my lawyer Richard Morrison, who'd handled Grandma Rose's will. Richard, I need you at Thanksgiving dinner. My family hired a PI to investigate me. I want you there when he presents his findings. Maya, do you know what he's found? I know what he should have found if he's any good at his job. Can you be there? I wouldn't miss it. Next, I called the one investigator I trusted. Jennifer Reeves, former FBI agent who now ran a private investigation firm we'd used for corporate background checks. Jennifer, I need a favor. A PI named, I checked the business card my brother had flashed. Thomas Warren from Warren Investigations was hired to investigate me. I need to know what he found. I know Tom Warren, Jennifer said. He's thorough. Almost too thorough. If your family hired him thinking he'd just find hidden bank accounts, they're in for a surprise. Tom doesn't do half jobs. If there's dirt anywhere in a case, he finds it. That's what I'm counting on. You want me there? Please. Thanksgiving dinner. 4 o'clock. I'll text you the address. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Miss Chin? This is Thomas Warren. I was hired by your family to investigate your finances. My pulse quickened. I know. I need to speak with you. Privately. Before Thanksgiving. Is that normal procedure? No, he admitted. But this case isn't normal. Miss Chen, I found what your family wanted me to find. I also found a great deal they very much did not want me to find. I have an ethical obligation to present my complete findings, but I thought you deserved a heads up. How bad is it? For them? Career-ending, potentially criminal charges across the board. For you, you're going to need security at that dinner. This is going to get ugly. Present your full findings, I said. Everything. Are you sure? I could deliver a separate report to law enforcement and spare you the family drama. Mr. Warren, they wanted a public reveal. They'll get one. Present everything. Hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to set boundaries with toxic family, because what happened next changed everything. I arrived at my parents' house at 3:45 on Thanksgiving. 20 cars filled the driveway and street. My family had invited everyone, extended relatives, family, friends, even neighbors. They wanted maximum audience for my humiliation. I dressed carefully. Tailored blazer, designer jeans, the diamond earrings Grandma Rose had given me. I looked successful without being flashy. Marcus had offered to come, but I declined. This is family business. Richard Morrison arrived at 3:55, looking every inch the high-powered attorney in his three-piece suit. Jennifer Reeves came at 4 exactly, her FBI bearing unmistakable. Thomas Warren was already there, sitting in my father's study with 2 large manila envelopes and a laptop. The dining room table sat 30 people, extended with every leaf my mother owned. The whole family was there, plus at least a dozen family friends, all looking at me with expressions ranging from pity to curiosity to barely disguised glee. Derek stood as I entered. Why, so glad you could make it. Wouldn't miss it. Jennifer caught my eye with concern. You're seriously outnumbered here. I know. Mom clinked her wine glass. The room fell silent. Thank you all for coming. Before we eat, we have some important family business to address. My stomach was a knot, but my face remained calm. As many of you know, Mom continued, there have been questions about Maya and the inheritance she received from Derek's and my mother Rose. Questions about honesty, transparency, and family loyalty. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Dad stood. We love Maya. But we've been concerned. She claims to be struggling financially while living off a substantial inheritance. We decided we needed answers. So we hired the best, Derek announced. Thomas Warren from Warren Investigations. He's been conducting a comprehensive background check on Maya for the past 6 weeks. All eyes turned to me. I remained seated, hands folded calmly on the table. Mr. Warren, Mom said formally. Would you please present your findings? Thomas Warren stood. He was 50-ish, gray hair, kind eyes that currently looked troubled. He picked up both envelopes and his laptop. Before I begin, he said, I want to clarify what I was hired to do. The Chen family asked me to investigate Maya Chen's finances, specifically to determine if she was hiding assets or income. And? Derek prompted eagerly. I found what you asked me to find, Warren said slowly. And significantly more. I have 2 reports. Per my contract, I'm required to present complete findings, not selective information. Mom frowned. What does that mean? It means I investigated Maya Chen thoroughly. But in doing so, I necessarily investigated everyone connected to her financial history. That includes all of you. The room went very still. Warren opened the first envelope. Report 1. Maya Chen's financial status. He pulled out a document and began reading. Maya Chen is the founder and CEO of DataSecure Solutions, a cybersecurity AI company headquartered in San Francisco. The company was valued at $140 million as of last month's audit. Ms. Chen owns 60% of the company, making her personal holdings worth approximately $84 million. Gasps echoed around the table. Derek's face went white. In addition, Warren continued, Ms. Chen has a personal investment portfolio worth $23 million, real estate holdings valued at $4.7 million, and liquid assets of approximately $8 million. Her company has secured contracts with multiple Fortune 500 companies and recently signed a $20 million Department of Defense contract. He pulled out a Forbes magazine. She was featured in Forbes 30 Under 32 years ago. The article was published at her request only after a 2-year embargo. He slid a folder across the table to me. Ms. Chin, your complete financial profile. Everything your family asked me to find. I didn't open it. I knew what was inside. Mom's voice shook. You've been lying to us for years? I never lied, I said calmly. I told you I worked in tech. I said I was doing fine. Everything I told you was true. I just didn't specify how fine I was doing. You let us think you were struggling. Jennifer shrieked. You assumed I was struggling, I corrected. I lived modestly. I drive an old car. I dress simply. Those were my choices. I never asked you for money. I never complained about finances. You made assumptions. Derek slammed his hand on the table. You hid this from us. Your own family. Yes, I said simply. I did. Why? Dad demanded. Because I wanted to know if you'd love me without my money. And now I know the answer. Warren cleared his throat. If I may continue, there's a second report. The room had erupted in angry muttering. Uncle John stood up. This is unbelievable. You've been hiding millions while we... Mr. Chin, Warren interrupted sharply. Please sit down. You particularly need to hear report 2. Something in his tone cut through the chaos. Uncle John slowly sat. Warren opened the second envelope. His expression was grim. Report 2. Financial irregularities discovered during investigation. My mother's face began to drain of color. In the course of investigating Maya Chin, Warren read, I conducted standard due diligence on all individuals with access to the inheritance in question. This included background checks on immediate family members. He pulled out a thick document. Derek Chin, employed at SoftLogic Incorporated as regional sales manager. During my investigation, I discovered irregularities in expense reports filed over the past 18 months. Fake vendor invoices, non-existent client entertainment expenses, ghost contractors. Total embezzled. $127,000. Derek shot to his feet. That's a lie. You can't prove. Warren slid a folder toward him. Wire transfers, forged receipts, email correspondence with the fake vendor accounts you created. I've already contacted SoftLogic's fraud department. They confirmed the investigation started this morning. Derek's legs gave out. He collapsed back into his chair. John Chin and Sarah Chin, Warren continued, his voice clinical. In the 6 months before Rose Chen's death and 3 months after, 23 credit cards were opened in Rose Chen's name. Charges totaling $89,000 were made on these cards. The bills were sent to a P.O. box registered to Sarah Chin. This constitutes identity theft, fraud, and elder abuse. Aunt Sarah started screaming. She was going to leave us money. We needed. You stole from a dying woman, Warren said flatly. He slid another folder across the table. Every application, every forged signature, every bill. The U.S. Postal Inspector will be receiving this file on Monday. Uncle John was backing away from the table, shaking his head violently. Wait, Mom said, her voice strangled. Wait, there's more. Warren looked at my parents. For a moment I saw something like pity cross his face. Robert and Linda Chin, he said quietly. This is the most extensive. Working with Derek's access to SoftLogic's vendor management system, you created multiple shell companies. Fake invoices were submitted, payments authorized by Derek, and funds routed to accounts you control. The scheme has been operating for 3 years. Total fraud, $264,000. Mom's wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. No one moved to clean it. Additionally, Warren said, there's evidence of tax fraud, falsified loan applications, and insurance fraud related to a car accident claim from 2022. He stacked all the folders neatly. Combined, the Chin family, excluding Maya, has committed financial crimes totaling approximately $480,000. I've documented everything. Emails, bank records, forged documents, wire transfers. It's comprehensive. The room was absolutely silent except for Aunt Sarah's sobbing. Jennifer stood up from the back of the room. She pulled out her badge. Jennifer Reeves, former FBI, currently private investigator. I've been consulting on this case. Mr. Warren's findings have been verified and will be turned over to appropriate law enforcement agencies. Federal charges are likely given the scope. Richard Morrison stood next. Richard Morrison, attorney. I represented Rose Chin when she drafted her will. I'm now representing Maya Chin. Any attempts to contest Rose's will or make claims against Maya's assets will be met with immediate legal action. Maya's finances are completely separate from any of your criminal activities. My father found his voice raspy and desperate. Maya, please. We can explain. No, I said simply. I stood up. Every eye in the room followed me. 8 years, I said quietly. 8 Thanksgivings where I sat at this table and listened to you explain why I was the disappointment. Why Derek was the success story. Why I couldn't understand real achievement. I looked at Derek. You embezzled from your employer while lecturing me about business ethics. I turned to my parents. You committed fraud while demanding I be more transparent. I faced Uncle John and Aunt Sarah. You stole from Grandma Rose while she was dying, then accused me of manipulating her. My voice didn't rise. I didn't shout. But every word landed like a hammer. I built a $140 million company while you were stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars and calling me a failure. I secured a Department of Defense contract while you were forging documents and calling me dishonest. I was featured in Forbes while you were committing crimes and calling me a fraud. I picked up the folder Warren had slid to me. This is everything you wanted to know about my success. Consider it my final gift to this family. I turned to Warren. Thank you for your thoroughness. To Richard, please proceed with all legal options to protect my assets. To Jennifer, the files are yours. Do what's right. Then I looked at my mother. You wanted proof I was lying. You wanted to expose me in front of everyone. You got your public reveal. Just not the one you expected. I walked toward the door. The room remained frozen. Paya. Dad's voice cracked. You can't just leave. We're family. I stopped, hand on the doorframe. No. We're related. Family is the people who love you when you have nothing. You hired an investigator to prove I was a fraud because you couldn't stand that I succeeded without your approval. You were so focused on tearing me down that you exposed your own crimes. We can fix this, Mom begged. We'll pay the money back. We'll make this right. With what money? I asked quietly. You've been stealing because you're drowning in debt. Derek's about to be fired and arrested. Uncle John and Aunt Sarah are facing federal charges. You're looking at fraud convictions. You can't fix this. You could have years ago by choosing to love me instead of resent me. But you made your choice. Jennifer called out. Maya, where will you be for follow-up questions? My lawyer has my contact information. I looked at my family one last time. Don't contact me. Any communication goes through Richard. I walked out of that house and didn't look back. The aftermath moved faster than even I anticipated. Derek was fired from SoftLogic on the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. Criminal charges were filed Wednesday. By Friday, Jennifer had left him, taking the kids to her parents' house. Their Montecito house viewing was canceled. They listed their current house for sale at a loss. Uncle John and Aunt Sarah were arrested on federal charges the following Monday. The bail was set at $50,000 each. Money they didn't have. They spent 3 days in jail before a bail bondsman would work with them. My parents received notice that they were under investigation for fraud and tax evasion on Wednesday. Their bank accounts were frozen pending the investigation. Dad's credit cards were declined when he tried to pay for groceries. Mom had a breakdown in the frozen food aisle when she realized she had no access to money. I knew all this because Marcus had set up a news alert system. Not because any of them could contact me. Richard had sent cease and desist letters to everyone, making it clear that any attempt to reach me would result in harassment charges. The extended family who'd attended that Thanksgiving dinner scattered like roaches when lights turn on. Suddenly no one had known about the investigation. Everyone claimed they'd just come for turkey. The neighbors who'd watched with such eager judgment were now avoiding my parents entirely. Within 2 weeks, Derek had accepted a plea deal. 18 months in prison, 5 years probation, full restitution. He'd have a felony record. His business career was over. Uncle John and Aunt Sarah's trial was set for 4 months out, but their lawyer was already discussing plea agreements. Federal prosecutors had everything. The P.O. box rental, the forged signatures, the credit card applications, the purchases. There was no defense. My parents faced the longest investigations. The scheme Warren had uncovered was complex, years in the making. But every shell company, every fake invoice, every fraudulent wire transfer was documented. Their lawyers gave them honest advice. Plead guilty, hope for reduced sentences. 6 weeks after Thanksgiving, I received a letter. Not to me directly. Richard intercepted it per our agreement and called to ask if I wanted to hear it. Who's it from? Your mother. I hesitated. Some damaged part of me still hoped for an apology. For acknowledgement. For something human. Read it. Richard cleared his throat. Maya, I know you won't talk to us, but I'm writing to beg you to reconsider. We're losing everything. The house is in foreclosure. We have no money. Your father can't work while under investigation. We need help. I know we made mistakes, but we're family. Family helps each other. Please reconsider. We could lose everything. Love, Mom. The letter was about money. Even now it was about money. Richard, draft a response. Tell her I did reconsider. For 8 years, I reconsidered every time I sat at their table being called a failure. Every time Derek announced his success while I stayed quiet. Every time they demanded I be transparent while they were committing crimes. I reconsidered constantly. My answer is no. Why? They're not losing everything because I won't help. They're losing everything because they stole nearly $500,000 while calling me dishonest. Natural consequences aren't cruelty. They're just consequences. 2 months later, my parents accepted a plea deal. 3 years in prison each, restitution, 5 years probation upon release. Derek was already serving his sentence. Uncle John and Aunt Sarah got 2 years each. The family shattered completely. Cousin Michelle stopped speaking to everyone. Family friends distanced themselves. The few relatives who'd been kind to me over the years reached out quietly, apologizing for not seeing what was happening. I accepted those apologies. Because they'd never participated. They'd just been present. 9 months after that Thanksgiving, I sat in my office at Data Secure headquarters. We'd just landed another major contract. The company valuation had increased to $180 million. Forbes wanted another interview. Marcus knocked on my door. You have a visitor. She says she's your cousin Michelle. I hadn't seen Michelle since Thanksgiving. Send her in. Michelle looked exhausted. Dark circles, no makeup, casual clothes. Nothing like the polished social media influencer she'd been. Maya, she said. I know you probably don't want to see me. Sit down. She sat, hands twisting in her lap. I wanted to apologize. I was at that dinner. I didn't say anything when they announced the investigator. I should have warned you. Why didn't you? Because I thought. She laughed bitterly. I thought they were right. I thought you'd been hiding money and playing victim. I didn't realize they were the ones stealing. You could have asked me directly. Would you have told me the truth? I considered that. Probably not. I wasn't telling anyone. Can I ask why? Why hide it? Why let them think you were struggling? I'd been asked this question a dozen times by Marcus, by Linda, by my therapist. I'd refined the answer. Because I needed to know if they'd love me without my success. I needed to know if I mattered beyond what I could provide. And I got my answer. Michelle nodded slowly. They called me last week. From prison. Collect calls. They wanted me to convince you to help them. What did you say? I said no. I said they did this to themselves. She looked up, tears in her eyes. Maya, I lost my whole family over this. My mom won't speak to me because I won't help pressure you. My dad says I'm a traitor. I'm sorry. Don't be. You were right. They were so focused on what you had that they couldn't see what they were destroying. And I was complicit by staying silent. We sat quietly for a moment. What will you do now? I asked. Start over. I got a job. Marketing coordinator at a startup. I'm selling my car to pay off debt. Learning to live within my means. She smiled weakly. Turns out not having family money means actually working. That's good, I said. And meant it. She stood to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. What you built. How you handled everything. You had every right to destroy them and you just walked away. I didn't destroy them. Their own choices did that. I just stopped protecting them from the consequences. After she left, I sat looking out at San Francisco. My city. My company. My life built exactly as I'd wanted it. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Team dinner tonight? Linda's treating since she landed the Austin contract. I smiled. This was my family now. The people who'd believed in me when I had nothing but an idea. Who'd celebrated my success and supported my choices. Who'd never asked what I could give them, only what we could build together. I texted back, I'll be there. A year later, DataSecure was acquired by a Fortune 100 company for $320 million. I retained a leadership position and a significant stake in the merged company. My personal net worth crossed $200 million. Derek finished his prison sentence and moved across the country. Last I heard, he was working retail and living with a roommate. Jennifer remarried. The kids were fine. I'd set up trust funds for them through an anonymous donor. They'd never know it was me. They were innocents in this. My parents were released after serving 2 years of their 3-year sentences. They moved to a small apartment in a different state. My mother tried to contact me once through a friend of a friend. I declined to respond. Uncle John and Aunt Sarah declared bankruptcy. They lost their house, their cars, their reputation. They moved to a retirement community in Arizona where no one knew their history. The inheritance from Grandma Rose, the $2.3 million that started all of this, had grown to $8 million through careful investment. I donated the entire amount to a foundation supporting children of incarcerated parents. The irony wasn't lost on me. I never spoke to my family again. Some people would call that cruel. I call it self-preservation. Because here's what I learned. Family isn't about blood. It's not about obligation or guilt or shared last names. Family is the people who love you when you're struggling, not just when you're successful. Family is the people who celebrate your victories instead of trying to tear you down. Family is chosen, not assigned. My family is Marcus and Linda and the team we built together. My family is the mentor who saw potential in a quiet kid with big ideas. My family is the memory of Grandma Rose, who loved me enough to protect me from the others. My biological family chose greed over love. They chose resentment over pride. They chose to commit crimes rather than build their own success. Those were their choices. I chose to walk away. That was mine. And I've never regretted it for a single second. If you've ever had to walk away from toxic family to save yourself, tell me your story in the comments. Does any of this feel familiar? What would you have done in my situation? Hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about standing up for yourself and not letting anyone, not even family, treat you like you're less than you are. Because you're not the family disappointment. You never were. Sometimes you're just the only one strong enough to break the cycle.